Steve will join us if he can. I'll shoot him a quick message here. All right, I will call this New Westminster Police Board meeting to order. What are the words that are coming out of my mouth? As always, we start with a land acknowledgement. We recognize and respect that New Westminster is on the unceded and unsurrendered land of the Halkanilan speaking peoples. We acknowledge that colonialism has made invisible their histories and connections to the land. As a city, we are learning and building relationships with the people whose lands we are on. We have the agenda. Are there any changes, options, or changes, edits? You're good? Nothing you want to add? Okay.
Is this open or closed?
Ooh, great question. Yes. Answer. Close. Thank you. We'll add that. Awesome. Okay, can someone move adoption of the agenda? Excellent. Second, and all in favor, all opposed, carried. Before we move on to consent, we maybe should do a roundtable. We have like lots of guests today, which is so exciting. And welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes, amazing to have you back.
Thank you.
And I don't know if it feels amazing for you to be back.
I'm excited to be back.
Okay.
Very excited.
Amazing. So this is Inspector Gosel for folks who are new at the table, but we'll do a round. Yeah, maybe Mary, do you want to start?
Sure. We know each other. I'm Mary Trentadue. What am I introducing? Just myself? Mary Trentadue.
Not your last supper, apparently, because I got really thrown under the bus.
I am a board member.
Hi, Kelsey Wall, board member. Nice to see you again.
Hello, I'm Daisy. I'm the police board secretary.
I'm in Gossel. I'm an inspector. So previously I was in the Community and Specialized Resources Division. Since then, we've done a org structure change and I've moved over to criminal investigation. So I'm back after 19 months off.
Patrick Malone, board member. Eamon Ward, Deputy Chief Operations.
Andrew Wickham, I'm the acting inspector of our corporate services division.
Sarah Patterson, HR manager. Dr. Farron, manager of finance.
Eric Bloor, president of the Police Association.
Haley Finnegan, NWPD Communications.
Andrew Perry, Deputy Chief Operations Support Bureau.
Heather Boisman, vice chair.
Paul Highland, Chief Constable.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for this nice full table. My name's Tasha. I'm the board chair.
Good morning. My name is Heather O'Connor, and I am a board member.
Morning, folks. Drew Hart. I'm board member Spock. Welcome back.
So great. And another new board member, Steve, should be joining us online very soon. Consent. Do folks have items they want to pull off consent?
I do. Chief's report and policy AE 65.
Sorry,
2.3 and 2.5.
okay. And I'm going to pull 2.8. And anybody else? Okay. I have a motion to move the adoption of consent.
So moved.
All in favor? All opposed, carried. Awesome. 2.3, the chief constable report. I just want to say thank you to the chief. That was really excellent to have it there. I think you really captured some key pieces. Yeah, so thanks for hearing that feedback and putting it, try to sneak it in consent, but then, you know.
Sorry, Paul.
I'm just joking. No, we just figured that actually it doesn't always warrant conversation. And so we had a conversation around that it will be in consent. And of course, if all board members are welcome to pull any items out of consent that they want to discuss. Sure.
I said a great report. Thanks, Chief. I had just a couple of questions. The first was just around the vulnerable road user collision. I mean, I've been hearing about them, but I was a little bit surprised how many. And just wondered, I know that you guys are doing some work and working with city engineering, but do we have a sense of what's going on? Why are there so many?
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for pulling it. I'm actually glad you pulled it because it gives me an opportunity before I start and answer that question. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the tragedy that actually occurred up in Tumbler Ridge several weeks ago. I know that several weeks have passed, but it's our first opportunity to be back together. So just wanted to acknowledge that tragedy, and I know moving forward, and certainly the bravery of the first responders, the educators in the community, and coming from a small town myself, those kind of incidents really have a lasting impact on smaller communities. So just wanted to acknowledge that and acknowledge some of the incredible bravery that occurred, and really wishing that community well moving forward. So that said, yeah, I don't think I can really give you a definitive answer. What it's really highlighted for us is our intention to improve communication and information flow with the city, and with specifically engineering. That number, which is 19 collisions, I believe is actually now 21. We've had 2 additional ones, pedestrian related collisions, since this report was finalized. So there's the wide gamut there. You know, obviously we play a role with regards to enforcement and education, and there's an engineering piece. And of course, really what it comes down to oftentimes is driver behavior. And, you know, we try to remind the community, especially at this time of year, we saw the weather this morning, be really, really careful. And that applies to everyone that's, you know, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or operating a motor vehicle. But obviously, if you're in a motor vehicle, the propensity for you for injury is more significant that you can cause. So it's something we're working on, and we'll continue to monitor. And if we do find issues or things that we can work on, we'll certainly report back to the board on that.
Yeah, thanks. The numbers seems like a lot. Other comment, just really pleased to see that the RPAS or drone program seems to be kicking off that success, which is great. My other question was just related to the restorative justice section and working with CIRA. Can you talk a little bit about more? I'm not clear how that would work or what that looks like. Can you talk a little bit more about what's going on and what that might look like?
Yeah, we've had a relationship with CIRA going back a number of years, and every so often we will meet with them. We see a reduction in referrals, and I think that is what the challenge that we have is, especially when we bring in a number of new members, they're not necessarily aware of the program. We do have a coordinator, or we've traditionally had a coordinator that can look at files that they can refer ourselves. I think a lot of the work that they do is related to the schools. So our numbers traditionally haven't been high, but certainly if it's something that we can refer to, we will look at that. We just don't have necessarily a lot of resourcing to coordinate that program on our end.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report. I just have 2 questions. One is about the People and Culture Committee. Who will be the lead on that committee, and will the HR manager also be part of this committee?
Yes.
Yes, yes, and yes.
So our HR manager and Inspector Jeff Scott are right now working on the terms of reference for that committee. So it's still a work in progress, but they're diligently moving ahead with that. And it's part of our broader organizational wellness strategy.
Okay, great, thank you. My other question was about restorative justice, but I think I will ask it. I think I'll ask it later. So pause on that one. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions with the chief? There's Steve. Hi, Steve. You want to just say a quick hello? There's some new faces in the room. I think you saw us, but we didn't see you at the time. And you're on mute.
There, now I think I'm on. Yes, thank you for the tip to raise my hand. Thank you, Daisy, for adding me. I was watching as a creep in the background for the last few minutes, so apologies, but glad to be here. Welcome back, and my name is Steve, and probably, I guess, the newest board member.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Steve. All right, can someone move to receive the report for information? Second. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Great. 2.5, policy AE65. Drew.
I just had one question for staff. In reviewing the policy, there was a section 14. Employers are responsible to ensure that all cloud backup, photo synchronization, and data sharing features that could transfer NWPD information to personal accounts are disabled. isn't there like an enterprise way you can just lock that down? It just sort of would seem weird to me that staff could log into their things and have stuff beaming up to wherever.
So I can partially answer that question. The concern especially relates to photographs. For example, someone's at a scene, is using their phone to take a photograph. If someone was to use the iPhone camera app, that would upload into their personal iCloud, correct? So they have an Axon Capture app, which is the digital evidence management system. They are to use the camera system through the digital app, the Axon app, which will load to the NWPD system. So it's a reminder to people that they shouldn't be using that feature, and they should instead be using the Axon. And if they use the Axon, then it will go where it needs to, and it will stay out and it'll be restricted from that. Same thing with email communications, right? We have a workplace email app. They keep their communications within that, and they will remain within that server and not go to like iCloud email or anything like that.
Is that normal? It just sounds weird to me that on police devices, folks be able to log into their own or have
I
their
think
own
it's
stuff.
because we allow people to use it for personal use too, you know, but the caveat is that it's a business phone. It is our phone. It is under our control and direction, but yes, you can use it for personal use. But obviously be mindful that there's going to be, it is still our phone. And if it does need to be brought back or anything needs to be done to it, we'll do so. And if there's inappropriate content within that or it's been used inappropriately, then the member or staff member can be responsible for that.
Okay, thank you. Just curious.
Anyone else? I think that is just receive for information. All right, can someone move to receive? Heather, Drew, second, all in favor? Opposed, carried, great. Moving right along, the BC Police Resources Report. Let me just find it here. Pages, that's me. Thank you for doing the summary. I think that this was something that we had asked for, and when it comes to sort of getting these larger reports, I think it's really helpful to have just the key pieces pulled out for board members so that we have an idea of what to focus on, but can also read the report from your lens. So yeah, really appreciated that summary. I was a bit surprised to see that we are now at the head of the POP to COP ratio. I feel like the conversation that certainly I heard, particularly before I joined the board, was that we were so far behind in this, and we've only added one additional sworn member, and all of a sudden we're highest. Like,
I believe it's the opposite.
it's the reverse.
We're at the other end.
We're at the other end.
We're at the
Means
other
We
end.
have the highest worst ratio.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was like, what happened? Thank you so much for clarifying that, because I was like, how are we at the top all of a sudden? I thought that this was, okay, that is really helpful. I obviously was tired when I was reading that particular report.
The challenge with this data too is the government of Canada, when they produce this information, they do it per 100,000, but the province, for whatever reason, does this kind of ratio. So perhaps moving forward, I can convert that. It might make it a little bit easier, because then you can.
No, I'm sure that was just a very human error. That was all on me, because clearly nobody else had the same interpretation. So thank you. I was just like, I don't know what was happening. So that's great. Okay. If anybody, I don't have any other questions about that report. Does anyone else have questions about the resource report? Can someone move to receive?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed, carried. Great. Moving on to ongoing business. Strategic plan update. So I have drafted an expression of interest, and once Heather and myself and the Heathers are on that committee, once they have an opportunity to provide some feedback, I will let the chief know sort of the scope and scale of what that will look like, and we'll put that out to tender. So this is traditionally work that I think the department has taken on largely. But, recognizing, as we go through our governance review process, sort of shifting roles back to the board and away from the board as deemed appropriate. And so, yeah, we'll be leading that process. We had spoken, you know, we've jumped around on the timing of this strategic plan a lot. I think it makes good sense that we have tied it into the legislated community survey, community feedback survey that we will be doing every 3 years. In maybe at a you know, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do strategic planning in my other professional hat. So, you know, the EOI is pretty detailed about and just fleshing it out. It is not an insignificant amount of work. If we're going to be engaging with various community groups, for example, asking members from the department about their, you know, really doing some robust engagement around it, and thinking about doing that and a community-wide survey every 3 years, I think it's fairly intensive, both time and dollar-wise to outsource that. So have proposed to the rest of the strategic planning committee members that we actually go in with the intent to make that a 6-year plan, but at the 3-year mark still do the legislated community outreach and be reflexive to do an update. So a smaller update, not a whole big new plan every 3 years. So yeah, we will bring that back to you as a committee, but I just wanted to let you know sort of how it's landing as the work kind of fleshes out. Yeah, it just became apparent to me that like, wow, this is going to be a huge undertaking if we have to do this every couple of years. So yeah, does anybody have any thoughts or? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, we'll keep you posted and hopefully we can get that out soon. And I've been connected with city staff. Thanks to Mary there for making the introduction, and Andrew had sent along some documents from last time and communication with the city. So that's been really helpful. So we'll get that moving. Kelsey, are you giving the governance committee or is it Mary now?
Daisy, you can probably going forward put my name down for the governance updates. I'm the chair of that committee now. And I apologize, everyone. I did receive a briefing note from our consultant that I very quickly forgot to send to Daisy for adding to this package. But I've sent it to Daisy and asked her to send it out to everyone. Basically, it's just a very brief update on where we're at with the governance work. Thank you all for attending the workshop we had at the beginning of the month. I think we had some really good conversations and gave our consultants lots to work with. What our committee is doing right now is we receive policies from the consultant that we are reviewing and sending back to them. So this is all in preparation for our April 1st meeting, which we'll be having with the board and the chief, and reviewing a first round draft of the governance manual. So the work is underway, and I think we're going to have a very, very refreshed and revised governance manual at the outcome of this project. So thanks to everyone for your work, and you will see a briefing note that says all of that in your inboxes later.
Awesome.
Thanks. If there's any questions, happy to answer.
Yeah, no, I thought the session was really productive.
Yeah.
And just want a huge thank you to Drew and Kelsey and Mary, because I know it's been a substantial amount of work on your end, and really appreciate, you know, the governance review seemed to get delayed a few times over the last couple of years. So I'm really happy that it's underway, and I know that that plus a strategic planning update is like a lot at once, but really appreciate the extra hours that you're putting in. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks.
All right. 3.3 governance report on training and staff development.
The board governance manual requires a report on training for the NWPD in the February meeting. This report provides information on the current state of staff development and our plan for 2026. I won't go into all the different courses and trainings that we have down there unless anyone has any specific questions. Some of these courses have been identified that we are doing. Some of them are on the radar if we need to do, such as in 2025, we had certain people attend certain courses. We have the need for doing so, such as people moving to leadership positions. Then we've identified those courses as what our plan will be to give those people some training in that area. So I'm not sure if anyone has any specific questions about this.
Kelsey?
I think just as a general comment, I recall this report coming to us last year and feeling at the time as well that it was more of like a list than a plan that I could digest and ask questions about. So in particular, when I look at this list of courses, questions that come to mind are how are opportunities distributed amongst the department? You know, what in here is sort of mandatory or like training that folks need to keep up to date versus where are we giving folks opportunities to extend their skills? I can't parse that as somebody who's not an officer. And then also, you know, questions around how does training integrate with leadership development considerations. I know we were starting to look at the leadership development plan. So those are some of the questions that I think I would like to have a bit more insight into when we review this plan, this document. And I'm not sure that in its current state, it's fair to ask those questions. So perhaps this is just like feedback on what this could look like in the future, but that's my lens when I'm thinking about staff development.
Yeah, Drew then.
Yeah, I just would echo Kelsey's comments. I don't find much value in this as it is. It's just a list, and I had similar questions like how many, what the opportunity is, where it fits into overall development. Similar comments to Kelsey.
My question is understanding the new model of the Justice Institute and welcoming new recruits to the department. The quality, that's just my question is the quality of training and preparedness for the new recruits, and how will we be able to support them and getting them caught up to speed, and they may not have that the in-depth training that they would have had before. So how are we going to be able to ensure that they're properly trained?
We just understand your question. Your question is when they come in before they go to the Justice Institute, after the Justice Institute, or all of the above?
So my question is just, you know, we talked about it at the last meeting,
Absolutely.
is that the quality of the preparedness for new recruits that will be now welcomed onto the police force.
Absolutely, yeah. So maybe I'll just touch on a couple of things that Kelsey and Drew identified. I won't go into too much depth because I do understand your questions. You're right. It would take me some time to be able to present that. But in general, for example, we start in the fall identifying training needs for the 2026 year. That usually goes to supervisors first to identify what gaps or areas for development they feel they need for their units. There's also requests made to the individual. The individual also self-identifies what they are interested in, what areas they are interested in developing in. And then, yeah, we have our own ideas on where we want to go, such as the neurodivergent training, right, which we've all talked about. That's something we're going to implement as mandatory training. We have done it. It has been completed except for one session that's remaining. So, Kelsey, thank you for your comments. Yeah, it makes sense. I think what this is a template that's been used year after year. And obviously the board has certain gaps in knowledge. You know, when we provide this now that we can look to fill. And then Heather, turning over to your feedback. So we have started two different things to help recruits be better prepared. Number one is at the beginning. Used to show up on your first day, you're sworn in and off you go. Now, in general, you're getting at least 1 to 2 weeks lead time to get acclimatized to the organization, get some initial training done, hopefully build a stronger connection with the department before you head off to the Justice Institute, as well as to sometimes we realize we're in an environment where you know, recruit competition is fierce right now, right? So sometimes we will also hire people in advance, call them pre-recruits before they're sworn in, where they'll again start to get acclimatized with the new organization. Usually they'll help out on training initiatives or community engagement beforehand. They could be hired 1 to 2 months in advance of their swearing date. On the flip side, once they come out of the academy, absolutely. This has been something we identified a number of years ago where certain training opportunities at the JI, believed to be scaled back with the increase in the training numbers and the frequency that they were receiving in certain areas. And what we did is we have partnered with other agencies such as Delta, Fort Moody, who are part of the training, the integrated training unit that we have. We have a core patrol tactics course, which is 2 weeks in length. So those officers come out and they'll then engage in additional training with things such as building searches, vehicle stops, active threat responses to help get them in to have some higher training frequencies, as well as to now work with the partners they're going to be working with here at the department as well.
I think some great questions. This is a legacy governance piece from the old manual, so it might be a good opportunity for the board in its new governance manual. If this is a debt, spell out what is they're seeking to find out. Because again, this report's probably been templated for a number of years. So if there's more data required, then we're certainly happy to provide it.
Yeah, I felt that's great, and it's great to flag that this is the reason it's coming in this format is because this is exactly what has been asked. So yeah, there's an opportunity for us to shift here. I think for myself, it would be helpful to some of the things that Kelsey and Drew raised around, like, you know, and you've already answered them, how are gaps identified, like, you know, how are these opportunities distributed, what is mandatory, what is not. And then also, and I think this is really great, I actually think this doesn't always tell the whole story, but I do think that many members of the community would be keen to see that these are like, this is training and updated training. And if you have a police officer in your life, you know they're always doing training of some sort. And so I think that it is helpful for folks to understand that, you know, you don't just come, you know, you're updating your skills all the time in the department. One of the pieces that isn't captured here, and I don't know how to capture it, and so maybe this can be, you know, an ongoing conversation. I'm open to feedback, is sort of the like softer leadership development that's happening. Like, how are we not just, you know, you take these courses and you training, but like, how are we developing, I guess, a departmental culture of, you know, related to retention, but, you know, mentorship, having people be able to sit into meetings that maybe, you know, give them a bit of exposure or opportunity to learn something, to hear about how conflict is resolved, both, you know, new recruits, of course, but as people progress sort of up the chain, how are we ensuring that we have like really good succession plan for our leadership here? That would be interesting to me, because I do think that New West is, from what I understand from all of you and what I see, is that New West is a department that is, you know, people come and they want to build their career here, right? It's a great place to work. And so we want to make sure that, you know, I think just have that really clear, the things that we're doing to ensure that that continues, that culture continues, that we are nurturing up and coming leaders, not just through like hard skills, but I don't know. As you know what I'm trying to get at?
I do, and
Yeah.
it's something I think that all our industry does sometimes struggle with a bit. If you break it down into very high levels, you have, you know, technical competencies, which obviously you want in leadership at all levels, but also behavioral competencies. You know, this leadership group that is here now has been selected obviously under technical competency, but also under their inherent leadership skills and developing that. It's about people, it's about trust. I think the traditional model in policing was, there's a real focus on technical skills. You're a really good street cop or a really good detective, then you make sergeant. I think certainly in this organization, we're trying to balance that with the people skills and making sure that leaders at all levels, even informal leaders, understand the people side of our industry. It's very challenging work. I tell all the recruits that come through that our role here is to remove as much internal stress and strain on them as we can, so they can go out there and focus on the work. So yeah, just evolving that. I think it's challenging to kind of really quantify, so because it's always evolving. There's a ton of training demands on police, more so, and it's easier to do the technical stuff. You know, okay, you have to qualify your pistol, use of force, these other ones, but it's developing these leadership, and there's so much to choose from. There's police related courses that can be taken, there's private sector courses that can be taken. And really, I think that's all important, but it's really modeling from the top down, the behavior that we expect here. So yeah, I think we can work on quantifying that for the board a little bit better, but it's a hard issue to really
I know,
encapsulate
yeah,
in the moment.
Maybe I could add to that though. So for example, last year, Tasha, we had 60 new people moving into leadership roles, right? So a lot of it, the sergeant level or corporal level. So a few years ago, we identified some courses at Queen's University. They are virtual courses. Okay, we are not sending people to Kingston, so on a plane. And I can, give you some history, but this learning to lead was based on all that. Was based on leadership principles and emotional intelligence. And a few years ago, we started to move the competencies and the weighting of those competencies away from more of the traditional operational skills into more leadership and emotional intelligence-based skills at all levels throughout the promotional process. So for example, last year, all of the individuals were required to take the learning to lead through Queen's. And we like it too because it also offers at multiple times throughout the year. So if someone, gets promoted later in the season, we can also have them do that. And again, it's virtual, they can do it from here. And it was cost-effective training too. Same with managing challenging conversations. We have identified that as being a challenge for any new leader. So that was another course that we identified. And the workplace mental health leadership, again, was to how to identify issues and support your people the best that you can. And again, all those are our virtual courses. We are, and I know we'll get into it probably in a future police board meeting, the leadership plan is to move towards a competency-based plan where you'll see things such as emotional intelligence. And then beside that, there'll be a couple of different options on how we recommend people develop those. Some of those may be training, some of them may be other areas, podcasts, whatever else it may be. But it will move towards more competency-based with some different options there. So I think what we've identified is that the past couple of years is there hasn't been a very structured framework towards that. And we are definitely want to, so that people know what they can expect when they move into these positions. We know what we're also giving to those people at all levels, at different levels, and what are they being taught. So yeah, it's been very positive so far. And honestly, we learned about some of these courses at Queen's University through some grant money that we had when we participated in studying at Thompson River University. And that's how we kind of thought, the feedback was that it was excellent, excellent training, research-based, evidence-based, good delivery. So, and they were also cost-effective to be virtual courses. So
that's great. Yeah, I don't doubt that a lot of that is happening. And to your point, it's so hard to capture. Like, well, I had coffee with someone and, talked about that.
Acting opportunity to really try to ensure that we're, when there's a vacancy, short-term or long-term, that we're having someone act up into those roles. And I think they gain good insights into what they potentially get themselves into when it goes to different roles or what they're interested in.
Yeah. I think just, we're, always talking about the competitive nature of recruitment right now, and we don't have shiny bonuses to hand out like other departments might have at the moment. And we're, a smaller department, so there might not be as many specialized things or paths for folks. And so I think one of the key things about the department, in my outsider perspective, is that culture. And so, and really investing in members as future leaders of this organization and making that really clear. Feels important.
What you'll see at some of the larger organizations, and again, going back to how much training is required, oftentimes our focus gets drawn onto the hard skills that are required, use of force, all these, they're low frequency, high risk events that we have to train on, we have to qualify. And that's where our training and staff development folks kind of get focused on. It's really expanding and having resources to have an individual or someone that can, sit down with everyone and have people self identify what their learning plan wants to be. So it's a bit of a struggle sometimes. Again, people are doing it off the side of their desk, but it's something we're working on for sure.
Awesome. And just a final question is, where does the civilian side fall into this, leadership development?
Yeah, absolutely. The learning to lead can also fall into civilian. Same with managing difficult conversations. We've also looked at hybrid remote leadership, right, for the civilian staff who are leading remote teams, right, because they are 50% of the time. For example, we have recently, one of our individuals is moving up into an acting leadership position for a maternity leave. And then that one of the first things we did was reached out and identified a training course, supervisory / leadership for this individual to be able to help them prepare on the work that we're about to undertake. So I think what we don't see as often in the civilian side, which is knock on wood, a good thing, is the turnover, right? Not saying people don't need ongoing education, but with the members, it's definitely, there's a turnover issue that we're always having to keep up and keep those trained. But civilians, absolutely, there's different opportunities, won't get into further, but yeah, the management team, those part of that. So we are very mindful of that.
Great. Awesome. Anybody else? Can someone move to receive the report? So moved. Second. All in favor? Opposed, carried. Excellent. The Rock Dock update. Say that really fast. Just out the gate, like again, I just feel so great about this agenda this month. These like summary reports and just are fantastic. So I wish Sanjay was here so I could tell him that. But yeah, really knocked this, in my opinion, knocked this one out of the park. But does anyone have any things before I jump in? Yeah.
Well, I have questions, but is it likely someone else can answer them possibly?
Yeah,
or-
unfortunately, Sanjay or Inspector Kumar is not here, so I tasked Eamon this morning with just briefing this. So, very quickly, as best we can. This was a initiative that was brought forward a number of months ago,
Okay,
and the board had a number of questions that we've come back, and I think they were good questions, and we've gained some insights through some legal information that we've received. So
how about I ask them, and if you can't answer,
Sure.
maybe you can pass them on to Inspector Kumar. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so thank you. My first question is, does the person in care have the ability to decline any kind of medical intervention or assessment?
Yeah, so the Rock Doc program.
Yep.
Is based on consent.
Okay,
So they have to give their consent or, yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, so we don't move ahead if they don't consent?
No.
Okay, thank you. And do we know what kind of liability Rock Dock, I don't like that name. Every time I have to say it, I don't like it. What kind of liability they assume? I know that it talks about their insurance in there, but if something were to go sideways with.
So that was one of the questions that was
Yeah.
brought up with legal.
Yeah.
And so between legal and Rock Doc,
Yeah.
Rock Doc has assumed all liability.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, for any sort of
Anything to
treatment,
do with
advice
this
or, okay, perfect, thank you. And then, so there was also some discussion about another health or medical application or program we were considering. I don't recall the name.
Health I am.
Thank you. How does this integrate or does it not? Are they separate?
Separate
They're
program.
totally separate
Yeah.
and they have separate outcomes or?
But Health IM is like around mental health and of the clients. This is more around medical management.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
so
is
that's how
medical
you
management.
define them.
Yeah,
Within
medical
the
management
tenant.
of people in custody in our cells.
Okay,
And Health IM is an external facing application that we're not yet using, but other
Yeah.
police departments are, that's dealing primarily, if not entirely, with mental health calls for service.
And like assessment.
Okay.
obviously.
Yeah, completely not
so they're
related,
very-
not connected.
so if somebody was having some mental health challenges, would we not apply, we would still apply the Rock Doc process if they were in custody? Would we
If
not?
they required medical attention, yes. So the Health I am program is a constable on the road, does an assessment.
Okay,
And it's a electronic form on the phone,
okay,
and they upload personal information about the person they're dealing with, symptoms, and it gets sent to the hospital. And then there's
Okay.
a determination whether that person gets apprehended under mental health act.
okay,
Completely separate.
okay,
If that person does end up in our cell, there will be an assessment whether they need any kind of medical attention, or
okay,
if they self-identify that they're going through withdrawal,
Right.
that sort of thing, or they
Yeah.
have an injury.
Yeah.
So that's where this program will do an assessment and determine whether or not they need to be brought to the hospital.
okay. So ideally, they're separate. They could overlap at some point
Yeah.
in a process.
Yes, the question is yes, but really health IM is, are they gonna be taken to the hospital?
Got it, okay.
Or are they gonna be brought
It's,
to our
it's
cell?
more like an assessment.
So if someone under health IM, we never ever entered the police department.
Got
They
it,
might just
okay,
be taken to the hospital.
got it, okay. Thank you, and please pass on, my regards for this report. It was really well done, and it did answer a lot of the questions that we asked the first time it came around, so I really appreciate
I will pass
the
that on.
depth that was provided. So those are my questions. Thank you very much. You did very well. Very limited time to prepare. I couldn't trick you.
Anybody else?
I just have a couple of comments, I think, more than questions. So I appreciate the report from Inspector Kumar. And I raised a bunch of questions on this topic the last time it came up. I still have a couple of worries or anxieties around medication administration, which I think has sort of started to be delved into, but I'm still not entirely clear of what the scope of that would be for NWPD staff or contractors working in cells, because cell staff are contracted. Because it sort of references there'd be support for withdrawal management, which is often includes things like Ativan, which is a controlled substance, which presumably we wouldn't be providing on site. So I just sort of want a bit more clarity, or I think it would be useful for the department to develop clear what those protocols are, what actually would be on site, what's in scope of what would be provided by staff, and what would have to be transported to hospital. I think it's important that all those be mapped out before the pilot starts, because regardless of whether or not RocDoc is assuming liability, if our staff are in a position where they're administering a medication, there's a potential risk there, I think. And there might also be some personal ethical concerns from the person providing the medication if they don't feel confident or qualified to provide that. So I just think it's important that we develop what those protocols are before we implement. That would be my thoughts or my fears. But appreciate the report, appreciate the investigation that Inspector Kumar has done so far.
Can I just add, I just really appreciate what Drew's brought forward, and I'm wondering what would the next step be based on those comments? Would some protocols be developed that would be presented to the board, or like how would those comments and concerns be covered off? That's a great question.
I think, and I do appreciate the comments, I think that the staff, Inspector Kumar, have done a lot of work with legal around this. This is a program that is actively being used by other police departments. And again, as I understand it, we will not be retaining controlled substances in the organization, nor will we be administrating them within the organization. The idea is that this system would allow us to potentially circumnavigate having to take a prisoner out of cells, transport to the hospital, wait X period of time, hours oftentimes, to get to see a doctor. This would get us ahead to see either a nurse practitioner or a physician. If there was going to be a prescription issued, we would then be going to taking the prisoner to a pharmacy and having that administered there, if I have that correct.
So with the prescriptions, we could go pick them up and bring them back to the police department on existing prescriptions. When it comes to like opiate therapy, we would take the prisoner to take their medication, and it would be administered by the pharmacist. That's what how the current system works right now.
As it stands now, and this has been a long-standing practice for prisoners in cells, and they have prescription medication that's coming with them, we do administer it to them. Like if they have whatever the prescription is and it's in their name,
Antibiotics or what have you.
we administer that. I think that's common across the board. We don't have the capacity, unfortunately, for having a dedicated nurse practitioner in our cells. So yeah, this is really trying to expand that. Really, the intentionality behind it is to get, to kind of not have to rely on taking prisoners out to the hospital all the time, and it's not uncommon for that to happen.
And generally, we just keep their prescriptions in their effects. And we take them out of the cell, we give them the prescription, and then they take it themselves.
Good.
Based on what, 3 times a day or what have you.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I guess from a governance perspective, I mean, I guess we would need some clarity from the board if they're comfortable with this initiative. But from how it operationally moves forward, I think that we would definitely have those protocols in place. And cells and or detention area is a high risk area. We bring in individuals that oftentimes have complex medical and health needs. So I think this is to supplement that. This would never, of course, remove our interest in bringing someone to a hospital or having emergency health services attend our cells, which again is quite common. Nor would it prevent if the individual insisted on going to the hospital, they would like, this wouldn't replace it. If they said, no, I'm having X issue, I think I really need to go to the emergency room, then we would facilitate that.
And I appreciate, because really, this is more, it's really assessment by a primary care provider to assess, is the individual stable enough to stay in cells, or is there a concern that they need, like, that's really what this is.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that, and I mean, if it's clear that we're not maintaining controlled substance, like there's a whole process that we need to go through in terms of secure and tracking and all that, so I'm comfortable with that. I just wanted to flag that the medication piece is the piece that makes me anxious, but as long as we have protocols, I don't think that needs to come back to the board. I think that's really.
And it is a pilot, so we were doing monitoring and assess what it is, you know, how many times we use it, and if there are areas we need to course correct on as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciated the evaluation metrics piece, just going into it sort of eyes wide open with a clear, like, a clear plan on what we're evaluating and what outcome we would consider to be a positive impact. So I think that I like that, because so many times, you know, I've been a part of so many things where we start a pilot or something, and then afterwards we're trying to evaluate and we don't go in sort of collecting the right data necessarily. And so I'm not suggesting that's ever happened here in my own life. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm curious to know, like, why you think the other departments like haven't released sort of that evaluation and have just carried on. Is it just sort of a procedural thing, or do you think, like, are we able to share with the community? Do you think that we will be in a position to share with the community, you know, what our assessment was of this program as we move forward, or is it there's some, you know, personal information or liability that
I don't see any reason why we couldn't, to be honest. And I was speaking to the other departments, they're relatively new to this program. Like, it's maybe last year is when they started. So,
Okay.
They may be doing that exact same thing. I don't know if they're going to be releasing that information or not. But
Okay. Just curious. Yeah, I think when we bring in new things like this, it is always helpful for, you know, folks in the community to just have a better understanding of, you know, why we've pivoted in a direction. And so the more that we can share about that, the better, I think. But yeah. So yeah, I'm supportive of this. If anyone would like to move receipt for information, that would be great. Second, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Awesome, great work.
Thank you, Anna.
nailed it.
Gold star for you. Provincial policing standard. Do
So
you want to
really-
speak a bit to this?
Sure, yeah, really quickly. I mean, the report kind of spells it out, but under the provincial policing standard 6.11, promoting unbiased policing, and of course, the internal policy that the board approves, annually we are required to do a review by ensuring an analysis of at least one of the following types of records, at least once per year, disaggregated by ethnicity and gender or sex of subjects. So in the past, they list three here: subject behavior officer reports, which are use of force reports, prisoner booking records, and then other records as identified by the board. In the past 2 years, we've done prisoner booking records and subject behavior officer reports, which we reported out to the board on. So this is really just an opportunity for the board to provide some direction if it chooses to do so on any records, whether it's the two listed or one of the two listed, or any other records the board would like reviewed for that information.
I'll open it up to the floor around suggestions. Do you have, you know, I think there is sometimes, especially for the newer board members, you don't know what you don't know. Like, could you give examples of other records that we might be able, that we could be interested in looking at?
Well, any record really. I don't know if that helps in any way. These are, you know, kind of standard ones because it's talking about use of force that police officers are using, and also about the persons that are being brought into cells. Other records, I guess, could be looked at would be records that are retained in our police record system. Could be arrests. It could be charges issued. Just looking for the team to jump in or any other. I should add that we are working on another audit report, which also falls under police standards, which is a little bit more probably meaty in terms, it's not just disaggregated by ethnicity or gender or race of or sex of subject. It's actually randomly sampling information and determining compliance with our own sort of policies and protocols. So the Deputy Perry is working on that. We have a draft of that report. So that's coming forward, and that is going to be talking about searches of prisoners.
Yeah, for example, it's going to look at individuals that were searched, whether or not they had lawful authority, whether it was done under the certain criteria according to policy. Within that too, we're actually combining the provincial police standards to talk about personal searches, but we have also combined that to show the ethnicity or race or cultural background of the individual that was arrested and searched. So, or they may not have been arrested. So we'll look through that. So we have a report. We're just, it was done for last year. 300 files were reviewed, and we're just in the final stages of reviewing that final report before we put it in a format for the board. So.
Yeah, that's more of a compliance audit on internal compliance audit on different areas. This is specifically measuring those issues on records that we hold. So those are the two common ones that the police services decided to put in there. But any record we retain really would be the board's prerogative for us to do an analysis. So again, it's probably related more to the police records system, which is called Prime. And the data contained in there, it could be just total files, but again, that would be potentially a lot of workload. It could be assault investigations or any specific investigation that the board felt was wanted reviewed by those criteria.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that data collected for traffic stops or no?
I would have to defer because we do violation tickets issued would go into the Prime database.
Okay.
I believe it would capture some of this information. Traffic stops in and of itself would not necessarily, unless there was an enforcement activity that came out of that.
So perhaps tickets and enforcement activities related to traffic stops might be a good place to delve into.
Well, yeah, Kelsey.
Could you just explain to me what the difference would be between a booking and an arrest?
Well, an arrest could be an arrest or detention under the Mental Health Act, where they're not necessarily booked into our cells. So the booking is simply individuals that are physically brought back into cells, either retained for some period of time or released in short order. There are some offenses where an individual could be arrested at scene, released with a Form 10, I think it's called now. So they're not necessarily booked into our cell process, or even driving while prohibited, again, a provincial offense. You could technically be arrested for that, but you're not necessarily going to find yourself back into cells.
Okay, I understand. And then a detention under the Mental Health Act, you would not categorize that as an arrest in your system, or would you?
It would be categorized as a detention. Yeah, it would be categorized as a detention or like an apprehension of the Mental Health Act.
Okay, so and that would all be combined into one like, so I'm just trying to understand, if we said we'd like to look at arrests.
Yeah.
What does that include? Would that include?
It would not include that, but I mean, the board could.
We could say
we want to review, this lands applied to arrests or mental health apprehensions or violation tickets or whatever the board wanted to have a look at.
Yeah, okay, interesting. I mean, I like Patrick's sort of line of thinking in terms of something that we haven't maybe looked at as a board. I'm also just wondering if we want to think about being a bit systematic about the way that we're asking for these records, because, you know, having looked at prisoner booking records in 2024, in my view, it would be nice to have to know that that one is going to come back, and so that we can sort of look at change over time. So it is, I think it is a bit of a larger conversation around like systematically as a board, what do we want to be looking at and on what cycle? Yeah, I don't have an answer.
So, yeah, I mean, and I think maybe we parse those two things out
Separately,
and
yeah.
give direction
That's
today, and then have that come to a future meeting around like, how do we want to look, what do we want to look at? How do we want to yeah, maybe it would be,
That's great.
less ad hoc.
Might be a good governance
Yeah,
piece.
I think you're just trying to shuffle everything to governance. I am on to you. Yeah, I struggled with this report because I was like, I don't know.
Same.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, I don't know what the options are. And on the other hand, why? And I understand it's a requirement, but I want us to have a reason to want to gain knowledge about particular things. And I think that's what you're speaking to is like a more systemic process or policy about why we want you to go off and gather this information and what's it going to tell us, and then what are we going to consider about that information. So it just feels very random, and like I'm not sure it doesn't feel particularly useful because I don't know what outcome we're trying to achieve. So I think I would want to go back up the chain a little bit to figure out how and what we want to know about the data before we send off people to go and achieve data. So like what Patrick has suggested about violations, like, sure, sounds interesting, but like why? Like I'm just not sure where we're going to go with that information. And that's what I want to have a place to go with it. If that makes
I
sense.
disagree, and the challenge we have with this is a provincial policing
sure.
center the province has given us, and
Yeah.
they do give their direction there to determine systemic inequities. I don't know necessarily how that applies in the real world as far as is the intention that the board compares the data to the regular population and the makeup of that. Like I can't speak to what the province is seeking, because whatever we do here, we do send to the province as well.
Yeah, I'm not like opposed to us doing it. Obviously, it's a requirement, but I want us to make the best use of doing it as opposed to just like, oh, let's look at blah, blah, blah today. If that makes sense.
No.
Steve's got his hand up too.
I don't know what order this happened. So
I just wanted to quickly add, I guess, what some of the pieces are the analysis piece that we could do a deep dive into, look at some of the trends and how we can look at ways of improving our system. I think with some of the reports, it's just that analysis piece I'd love to see. So we can compare it to other community or other police departments and see if we're on track. And I love the piece about the traffic stops. I'd love to see if we could start looking at those trends there.
Just with the traffic stops, I don't think necessarily we would identify ethnicity. That might be problematic.
Might not identify
With
what.
It's always just an enforcement
Oh.
action.
Yeah.
If something happens, like if there's a
Yeah.
violation ticket written or a warrant executed, like if it's a traffic stop and the police officer comes up and says, hey, you were speeding, by giving a verbal warning, we don't document that.
What? People get just verbal warnings?
Yes, that was my
I mean, not that I
style.
ever
I read a report.
Yeah. It's community relations, it's education.
Heather has a hand up.
Steve.
Oh,
Steve.
Steve.
Are you waiting for me now, Tasha?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. And I think honestly, if I was patient enough and let everybody else in the room speak, they would have covered all of my points or questions on this. And so I'm largely going to rehash a lot of what's been said, which is hard to answer as to what other data points we might like to track when we don't necessarily know what the array of options are that are in the system. And I think that I think it would be wise perhaps to have a separate conversation to understand what are the data points that get tracked, and what do we as a group feel would be 3, 4, 5 data points that we really want to have a feel for, and that we really want to use as indicators of the health or the progress that we're making in a particular area of concern. And then I think Heather also talked about, I don't know a lot about police boards and police departments at this point, but is there a way to learn what are other departments tracking? What's the value of that? And does it make sense for us to start tracking similar stuff so that we can sort of compare and contrast progress in those regards? So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Steve.
question, how are we identifying ethnicity? Like, how are police officers doing this? Is it self-identity? Is it them identifying?
It's a bit of both, so, and that is a very, it's a question that's being dealt with at the highest level. So in Prime, which is again our police system, there is a box where you can identify, where a person can be identified by race. I can't recall what they are, but I think there's a drop-down box. So oftentimes, if an individual is already in the system, that box will have already been filled in. So oftentimes that's just what it is. As a general, we're not asking individuals what their race is, but it's more about self-identification or officer observance.
So that, I mean, for me, there's a lot of strength to this. I look at my nephew, he's a quarter Filipino, a quarter white, Caucasian. It's really hard to kind of tell what he is. So I also think we have to consider this data as subjective.
There are new standards coming in shortly for the uniform crime reporting in regards to ethnicity and race. That's why Paul said it's at the highest level. Stats Canada. The different stakeholders in regards to that. And we're just waiting to see at what point does it come our way to be implemented into our crime. So, but it has been started to begun. It has began to be implemented in other areas of the country. So, and that'll change. And as you said, yeah, what is the best way? Best practice typically, like the department is self-identified, right?
Yeah,
who are we to assume someone's ethnic, racial, cultural background? So yeah.
I'll see that.
Just taking into account this conversation and that the requirement from the policing standard is that we look at these records once a year. I would think that gives us until the end of this year to consider this. So is that is that true, or like a year from when we last?
I think it's calendar year, like so every calendar year that we're required to come back to the board.
Okay, yeah, so perhaps it would be the best course of action for governance to take this away and recommend. Sorry, I mean, I'm on the committee too. It's not
I
like
think it's a strategic planning issue, don't you?
well, I mean, it's just to
No, I
sort
agree.
of, come back with a bit of a proposed process that we can consider. I really don't want to send staff away today with just saying, okay, go do prisoner booking records because it's been 2 years since we looked at that. Or, you know, I like Patrick's idea, but I think it requires just a little bit of conversation around what would we actually be looking for if we were to look at traffic violations. So I would like to recommend that we send this to governance committee for consideration and to come back with enough time for staff to be able to pull a report for this calendar year. But we'll have a bit of a plan for how we want to look at these going forward.
Do you think that you have enough information to assess that, or
No.
do you need support from staff?
I think we'll have to work with staff. To
Okay,
get the
so do you feel like we need a formal motion around that, or do you feel like they can communicate with who would it be?
Yeah, I think I could be the conduit. I mean, if at the very high level, I totally appreciate that we need to break this down. What I think they're looking for is this breakdown on interactions between police officers and members of the public. So that is a wide swath. They picked these two because they're probably high impact, use of force and taking someone to custody. But you could break this down into so many categories that could be overwhelming for the board, and the board wanting to determine what areas we want to kind of delve into. So staff can easily provide more of that information, like maybe even a list of things that we could do based on, you know, the police database.
Yeah, and I think even just even if we determine that, you know, maybe these two at the high level are what we want to look at as a board, then on what frequency, right? So that like and what are we what's our lens on this? Like I understand what we're looking for overall with this sort of directive, but I think we want to make the best use of staff time, essentially. Patrick, then.
Yeah, and I guess directing governance committees, since I'm not on the governance committee. Why I say traffic is because, like Chief just said, you're talking about contact points between police officers and members of the public, of which you don't have a lot besides what's already been mentioned in the report, the use of force that we've seen, and then the prisoner records. Traffic would be, I think, something that we haven't looked at. That would be a natural contact point you'd want to look at potentially. But I'd caution the governance committee about things like arrest records, because arrests tends to be a dumb metric. It doesn't mean a lot. Just because someone's arrested doesn't mean, like Chief was alluding to, they end up going through court, or they end up being booked. They can be released after being arrested. So it's, I wouldn't say it would spell out too much, but yeah, I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole forever in terms of metrics and what would be of interest to us. But I would say focus on those direct contacts and statistics between police and the public, like traffic incidents. That was just my logic there.
Oh, Heather.
Yeah, and I think for it to be meaningful, it also has to come to the strategic planning team to see what we really want to do. We need to have a plan in place, but also we need to have the governance there too. But we really need to come up with a plan as to what we want to look at it and monitor in a meaningful way. Else it will just be random. But I hear what you're saying. It needs to be something that's impactful and something that we can see the change as we move down over the years.
I was going to say, sort of kind of related to that. I don't actually think it is a governance committee issue. I think it is more, it should more align with, and I mean, I know committees are new for us. I think it should more align with strategic planning. Where are we going? What do we actually want to do going forward? And I think it should be aligned more with that. Governance, I would see more as helping to put a process in place.
Yeah.
But I think the articulation of what we actually want to do, I don't think that was in governance.
No, I agree.
It's strategic.
Well, I see both sides. I think that the process in which so that we're not just having this ad hoc conversation year after year around what do we want to choose this year. I think that process is a governance issue. And I think the outcomes and what are we going to do with this information is part of the overall picture. Like, how are we supporting the department to move in a great way, right? So, you know, I think that everyone has a role to play here. So maybe what I'll suggest is maybe we just have it as a whole board conversation on the next agenda. We just make some space for it. What do you think about that? Yeah. What does the governance committee do about that? What do you think about that, Patrick?
I feel like we have a full board discussion. I don't know what bringing it next.
That's a great point. I'm just trying to appease the
Why don't you let the governance committee come back with some
Yes.
sort of outline of where we think our role is in this work?
perfect.
And then you strategic planners can fill in the blanks with
Okay.
how it actually, what it looks like in a strategic plan.
Sure.
How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Okay, so governance committee is going to take it away, draft sort of what is the role on that side, and any thoughts
That's
around
the
that.
governance role.
Staff is going to send a list of possible options that you think might be of interest, and we'll go from there.
And is that a motion or is that just a?
And it just.
Another
I
motion
don't
is
think we
not
need
an
a
action.
motion.
No, I think the motion will be whatever the governance committee brings back to the
Yeah,
board.
I don't
The
think
board
it's
would
a
have to
motion.
pass that motion.
Yeah,
As a researcher though, please allow senior leadership time to collect, analyze, and report data because it takes time. So
yes, of course.
ASAP, I would suggest.
Great. Okay, well, we provided other direction. I think on there, it's the option too. Okay, so I don't think, do I need to vote on that? I think it's good. Okay, moving along, because we need to pick up the pace here. The community event safety report. Andrew.
Thank you. This initial report that was published a few months ago was added into the board agenda package. Staff that we're going to take it back and do a review of the report and its recommendations in light of the current state here at the department of the city of New Westminster. The original report was prepared by Inspector Jeff Scott. This commission evaluated the state of public safety and planning and management for community events across British Columbia. The inquiry was prompted by the April 2025 tragedy at the Lapu Lapu Cultural Celebration in Vancouver. The commission issued 6 recommendations. Desirably, the city of New Westminster is comparatively ahead in its approach to event planning and management, adopting a festival expediting staff team model, commonly known as FEST, developed by Vancouver. This model incorporates structured risk assessments, strong partnerships between the city and the NWPD, mechanisms for continuous improvement. City of New Westminster's practices align with, and in some cases, the commission's recommendations. However, challenges still remain. In some cases, challenges still remain in the areas of staffing capacity, insurance costs, equipment procurement and storage, and consistent oversight of smaller or unpermitted events. Overall, the commission advocated for proportionate, coordinated, practical approaches rather than a prescriptive regulation in order to create safer, more resilient community events while safeguarding cultural, social, and economic contributions. Quickly, I'll go through some of the key recommendations and how we compare. In regards to risk assessments in event planning, these are required for events with road closures, alcohol, late curfews, or more than 500 attendees. The FEST team conducts structured reviews of safety, evacuation, traffic, and security plans. In regards to clarifying jurisdictional roles in event oversight, FEST delineates roles across city departments, police, and fire. There are clear thresholds on police involvement. When it comes to training for planning support and a centralized support hub, the City of New Westminster provides comprehensive application packages and conducts debriefs. However, standardized training for volunteers is lacking. In regards to support for event delivery and local capacity, the city provides grants, cash, and in-kind services, but rising costs and storage challenges remain. And this is what the Commission's report highlighted. One of the most significant barriers for most municipalities is the rising costs to run these events. In regards to fostering local collaboration on event safety, FEST fosters interagency collaboration and uses scenario-based planning, placing the City of New Westminster ahead of many municipalities. And lastly, when it comes to promoting learning through event evaluation, the City of New Westminster conducts debriefs and integrates lessons learned into subsequent planning practices. Thank you.
Anybody on this? Yeah, again, I thought this was a great report and a really helpful summary and analysis of where we are. And following the tragic event at Lapu Lapu, I think that community has an appetite to hear about the ways in which we're approaching event safety. So yeah, really appreciate it. Really appreciated this much. Would someone like to move to receive for information?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Great. Police board SharePoint access.
Yeah, so we received a request from the police board to evaluate SharePoint or some other document storage methods, I believe. So just to give you an update, we're currently assessing the advantages and disadvantages and costs associated with providing the police board with a MS365 account, which will include SharePoint under the police board domain, or also under the NW police domain. So I think it'd be helpful to know if the police board prefers to have it under your police board domain, maintain your email addresses as is. Obviously, we're going to look into that. I understand, and we'll present some cost to you to be able to see the difference. But for example, the costs are quite minimal for the NW police domain, so we're hoping that they're not going to be anything excessive. But I'd like to be able to provide that to you for your consideration. And the other question we have is that does the police board have a need for any other features other than SharePoint, such as MS Teams, OneDrive, anything like that that we just need to be mindful of?
I think Teams would be good. Yeah. For the committees.
Yeah. I think Teams would be good.
Okay.
For the committee.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I
assumed you could hear me.
What about OneDrive for storing?
I think that's what we will use SharePoint for. Isn't that the?
SharePoint though is for privacy. I don't.
Is SharePoint not as reliable for privacy? I thought it was.
So
We know some major organizations that are using SharePoint. OneDrive, from my understanding, is like a Google Drive, a shared drive. So if you're creating a shared document, and please, anybody chime in if you know better. So
I think if we can back up to what the objective that we're trying to achieve is, my police stuff lives on here. Ideally, it would be on something that's more secure, that's most likely on the police board domain, that's secured, backed up, isn't living on Drew's files. I think that's one thing, the one objective that we're trying to achieve. I think we're trying to move away from personal things. So to the comments around Teams, when I log into Teams right now, it shows up as Drew at Providence Healthcare. Ideally, I wouldn't be using my work corporate account for those things. So I think that's what the objective of what we're trying to achieve. I don't know what the ultimate solution is.
yeah,
Maybe we want
that's
searchable
perfect. No, that's very helpful.
files.
Yeah.
Kelsey.
People ask them maybe to give us like it's out of scope of what they're doing, but the IT review.
Yeah, we could. I think that we are using some of these products ourselves right
I'm
now
assuming
for
so.
similar type reasons, OneDrive, et cetera. But it sounds like based on what you're hoping to achieve here, I think all those three things, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, will allow you to do that.
Yeah, that's just what I was gonna say. I think we need OneDrive in addition to SharePoint because we want to have a repository of all our documents, but then also be able to collaborate on them as we're working on them.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of storing of information, like if it's aligned with FOIPA, if we're having confidential information, and if our information goes to the states even for a nanosecond, we'd have to consider that. So I know OneDrive would be more secure for storing information, but for communicating non-confidential information, SharePoint is good. That's just our
That
practice.
sounds very knowledgeable.
There's some way to get Microsoft to host things on Canadian servers though, because we do it at Douglas, so
Yeah.
there's a way to do that. I do know better than
Yeah, we can find it. We commonly run across that, right, with different applications we have to review. And a lot of people in Google, Amazon have servers here in Canada, so.
Teresa, did you catch that? We're getting MS Teams. Like just moving into the whatever century we're in. It's just exciting time. Make a note. Hot off the press.
That'll be the headline.
Hot off the presses. Okay, that's great. The conference and sponsorship request. Please let Daisy know if you would like to attend the conference. I will be attending on behalf of the board and will plan to report back for those unable to go. The sponsorship request, it was my understanding that we
Typically
Said we're-
sponsor
Coffee.
But the coffee was
But I'd
$575
like to be a friend.
last year.
Yeah, it's gone up
So it's
significantly.
over double.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's double?
What is it now, 1,500?
I hope it's better coffee.
It's 1,500 and last year the sponsor of the coffee was $575.
Oh,
What? That's outrageous.
I see us more as friends or supporters of this organization.
Coffee's expensive in Wisconsin.
like are they lattes dripped with gold? Like what is
Just to remind everyone, BCAPB operates on a pretty razor thin margin in terms of their budget, so any help is appreciated. It doesn't have to be a coffee, but
okay?
even
Well,
a couple $100.
so if someone could move something that
I move that we be a friend.
At the low end, a low end friend.
$1,000.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's.
Oh,
fair.
that's the friend. I thought you were saying supporter.
so Drew would like to, Drew, you move that we provide $1,000 sponsorship to the conference, the BCAPB 2026 conference.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Second,
I said.
all in favor? Opposed?
No, just kidding.
Okay, we will do that. And we already passed a motion to submit a resolution around regional bargaining, correct? Okay, so we don't need to do that. Are there any other resolutions that folks would like us to submit? We have some time, so I guess maybe I'll just flag this. We don't need to have this conversation now. If you think of things, please raise them to me and I can add them to the next agenda until April.
Just a process question, who is drafting the resolution?
I can draft it. I drafted a letter, right?
And of course, mine is.
Perfect.
Yeah. Great. Okay, well, I think with that, that's it. We will adjourn, move to adjourn and continue and close. Move, second, all in favor, all opposed, carried. Awesome, great. Thank you.
Sweet.
And we'll just take a 5-minute break for folks to